guys. And before I forget, let me make Kate Carlton the host here. That way she can let people into the room. There we go. All right, Kate, you can watch the waiting room now. I'm just going to restart that. Good morning, everyone. My name is Patrick Madigan. I'm the vice president of our KWYP chapter here in the Triangle, Raleigh-Durham area. In case you don't know what KWYP is, it is the Young Professionals Division of Keller Williams Realty International. And so this is just hungry, motivated agents who have a big vision for their life, and predominantly for agents under 40, although we do let people stay in even when they age out for a year or two. And so what we do is here in our Triangle chapter in the Triangle area of North Carolina, we host this monthly Zoom series where we interview people across the country, although today we do have a local here, which we're excited to get into. And we hear about their life and their business and their story and their challenges. And so this is not just geared toward realtors, not just toward Keller Williams, definitely not toward just local people. We want you to use the invite link to send this to anyone you know that might be inspired by this, whether they're thinking about getting into real estate or whether they're in a total other business and industry altogether. So with that said, we have Keith today. And and also this will be recorded and will be up on YouTube because Keith is going to bring a lot of value and we want to make sure that we can let this live in perpetuity. So Keith, no pressure, man. Don't say anything too embarrassing. What goes on the internet lives forever. So a brief introduction. Keith is in his 5th year of real estate. In his first partial year, he sold a few homes, but in his first complete year, he sold $11 million worth of real estate and has now skyrocketed and is on path to a much larger business. He has a full-time executive assistant that works with him and he's poised to grow. And so we're just going to go ahead and dig into the questions, Keith. So first of all, thank you for being here. Keith, you're local here in the Triangle. Tell us what part of the Triangle you live in right now.
So I am in Apex. So I'm in our KW Legacy office.
Awesome. And you've got some pretty local Tangled heritage when it comes to the schools in the area, right? So tell us about that. You've got a unique perspective on that.
So I'd say I'm probably one of the few people that is actually from Cary that means it. So, I since age 5 lived in Cary, and then for undergrad, I went to UNC Chapel Hill, got a grad degree from NC State, and then I worked at Duke for 7 years before I switched into real estate several years ago. So I refer to it as a tar wolf devil, but my allegiance is go with the lighter shade of blue since that was my first one.
Yes. Oh, of course. Yep. Your undergrad is the team you root for. Your master's is the one you hang on the wall, right?
Yep.
So that's awesome. In case you don't know, for anyone who's watching from out of the area, whether live or on YouTube later, the Triangle of North Carolina is the capital metro area, and we have 3 main schools: Duke Blue Devils, UNC Tar Heels, and North Carolina State Wolfpack. That's the best one. So a lot of everyone here has different backgrounds, go to different schools, work, and graduate. I married a Tar Heel. I grew up a Tar Heel fan. And so this is the best, most heated area of college basketball in the whole nation. You may know UNC Tar Heels. Congratulations on that Cinderella run that you guys had in the tournament a few weeks ago. That was amazing. So that said, Keith, you bring a really unique perspective. And when you worked at Duke, I want to talk about that. Your first jobs out of college, you were in higher ed. You got your master's of higher ed, right? And then you went straight into working at Duke. So tell us about what that early job was like.
Yeah, so got it. My original thought was, I was going to pursue a career path and some level at the university level, whether it was in student affairs or kind of a university administrator role. So I worked at Duke's Business School for about 5 years, 4 to 5 years. Doing some more program administration, got to work with students and faculty and do some international travel. But then the last few years before I switched into real estate, I was doing fundraising. And my role was to convert donors into new major gift prospects. So to qualify them. So maybe somebody who would be giving some money, but not a ton. And in a way, I feel like that really prepared me for real estate. So I figured if I can get people to give money away for free, essentially, certainly I can get them to sell a house or to buy a house. So the conversations, the real estate conversations didn't seem quite as intimidating as asking people for money where they really weren't getting a big tangible benefit in return.
Yeah. And would you say the folks that have worked with you in the past 5 years in real estate have gotten a pretty good return on their investment?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, even just a year or so.
Yeah, you don't see a gift to the university increasing in value by 50% and then getting it back to you at the end. That would be nice, though, wouldn't
it?
I think universities would get a lot more donations if that were the case. So you're in higher ed, you're in donations and development, helping ask for money, fundraising. I'm sure a lot of those skills transferred over. So tell me what that was like when you decided to make that jump. Was it a quick overnight thing? You had a day at work, you're like, I got to quit, I got to change careers. or was it more of a gradual process as you eased into real estate?
Yeah, so I enjoyed my role at Duke, and they refer to it jokingly as the golden handcuffs, because you get really good benefits. So you get high contribution towards retirement. They really good health care. They if you stay long enough, they pay for towards your kids' college. So, but the annual salary was okay, and I just didn't feel like there was a lot of room for growth for me. And for me, as somebody who worked hard and put a lot of effort in to get rewarded or compensated at the same level as somebody who was falling asleep at their desk, it was a little frustrating. So I didn't see a huge growth path. And then also I was on the road a lot, so that the areas I covered were Texas, Chicago, Southern California, and Seattle. And I was on the road every other week. And we had just had our second kid, and it was getting, the travel was getting to be a bit of a grind. So I figured, you know what, we just had our second child. What better time to leave a nice steady job to go purely commission based? So, I thought about it for a while, did a lot of informational interviews, did podcasts, did reading, did my homework and prepared, saved up, and then, did the leap of faith. I knew from everything I learned that real estate was a full-time job. So I had to take the full leap, and that kind of just, dipping in a little bit wasn't going to work.
Man, I mean, there's so much in there that I want to unpack. You've got, first of all, shifting careers. Had two kids already, which is way more risky in a lot of ways than someone who's 23 and they want to switch careers. So what do you say to someone, a friend of yours comes to you, hey, Keith, I've seen you've had a lot of success. I'm curious about doing real estate, but I've got these great benefits. Someone who's maybe scared to take that leap, how do you inspire them, or maybe even discourage them if you don't think it's the right fit? What is your approach to that? And what was your mindset like when you were jumping into something that was uncertain?
Yeah, I think for me, in a way, it's because of my life situation. Like I viewed it as I couldn't fail. Like I had to treat it seriously and treat it like a job. And I see a lot of agents who seem to, maybe dabble in real estate or treat it more like a hobby and not like their full-time job. Like I'm in our office most days. I'm working, a lot of nights and a lot of weekends. So, you really have to treat it like it's a full-time job. And I feel like a lot of people don't. And if you're choosing real estate for the flexibility, that's not what's gonna, because I tell people, like, a lot of times you're working when people are not working, because that's when you're able to show houses or have those conversations. And so if it's for the flexibility, that's not a good reason. You need to understand, like, it is, it's a lead generation, it's prospecting, it's follow-up, it's communication. Like there's so many different hats you're wearing, but you really have to be committed, is what I would tell people.
Yeah, my first few years out of college, I worked in a nonprofit working with college students, and I had a non-traditional schedule. When you work with college students, those are late nights, it's weekends, it's football games on Saturdays. And so I think for you, some people who are already used to that 9 to 5 grind, even though they get into real estate for the flexibility, they are better poised, because you can do real estate flexibly, right? You have to be available nights and weekends, but at the same time, you probably had more constraints with your kids, and with even as simple as drop off and daycare and carpool. Like you had to be in the office at certain times to get your stuff done, so you're available in the evening to help your partner, to be with your kids. So would you say that helped you to treat real estate more as a business because you approached it from a 9 to 5 career in the past?
Yeah, I think, having had that structured environment, and then I think just applying that, just because you do have the flexibility doesn't mean, you take advantage of it. And, certainly, and even now, like I'll take off, yesterday during the middle of the day, I went for a run, and it's like, it's okay to do that when you're working nights and weekends, but then you still have to treat the rest of the time like it's a job,
Yep. So this is inspiring for me as I continue to try to get more structured with my day as I build my team. So I'm loving where we're going with this. Average agent sells 5 to 10 homes a year, depending on who you ask, right? With our median price point hovering, somewhere in the 400s, let's just call that $2 to $4 million in volume. That's a great way to start out, right? You can make a living off of that as an individual. What does it look like for you to jump into that sort of career and to blow right past that? How do you hit 11 million in volume your first year in the business?
I think it was a lot of, because I was strategic about how I approached the business. I did a big kind of launch campaign when I started my career. I did, to my sphere of influence, I think I did weekly mailers for about 8 weeks. And then, follow up lots of coffees. So, I set the kind of the foundation to be successful. And then, I'm finding it's a lot of it's snowball effect. Like we had a prep call, and I do farming, and geographic farming is like you don't see the results of that right away. And even things I'm doing now, I'm hearing, like I just had a conversation with a colleague that I worked with in fundraising at Duke that they've not been on my email list, but they were more kind of on there. It wasn't super close, but like the things you do, like you don't always see the results right away. So it's that snowball effect. So that's why I think you got to keep at it, because you don't always see the fruits of your labor right away, or at least the way I approach my business. It's more playing the long game.
Yeah. So for anyone who's joining us from outside of real estate industry, we're going to talk about Keith's lead generation. And lead generation is essentially, you can think of it as business development. Where do you go to get more clients? For traditional businesses, it's a mix of marketing with being in touch with past clients. So Keith, when we talk about lead generation, what does that look like for you? What is your business built on?
Yeah, so I am really based on my sphere referral and past clients. So that's probably about almost like 85% of my business is, working by referral, working my sphere of influence, since I do have a good network within the triangle. And then I have been doing some geographic farming in the neighborhood that I used to live in. So I actually got, because of that farming, I've gotten 3 listings from that this year, which has been great. I'm going to continue to be more systematized with that. And then just kind of more of the one-offs. I had my first sign call this year, so that was exciting. So,
nice.
But that's not a strategy that you bank on. That's a one-off.
Yeah. Tell us about the farming, to get into detail on that for people who don't know what farming is, or if they don't know how to implement it.
Yeah, so I do direct mail for my farming. So I've got a neighborhood that I used to live in, Audubon Park in South Durham. So I do monthly mailers, and I try and be very focused on it. And I would say I'm being more focused on it. I've had a few pieces, but then I've been working with my exec assistant to try and come up with a farming calendar. So each month we know what we're doing, and then we can repeat it each year. So I've learned from family reunion and coming to Keller Williams, better systems in place, so you're not recreating the wheel each time. So yeah, each month it's some item of value, and I send out like a recycling calendar at the start of the year, neighborhood market statistics, a giveaway for power washing, so different items of value that people had, and then in addition to that, doing the just sold postcards on top of that.
And you mentioned you got your first sign call. So for those outside of real estate, when you put a yard sign in the front yard of a listing that you have, it used to be much more common to get phone calls on that before the internet and before Zillow, because that was the only way buyers had to get in touch with you. They would drive neighborhoods, they would see the sign and call the listing agent. Nowadays, most people go on Zillow, they go on Redfin, these websites, and they either text their own realtor who they know outside, or they will get in touch with the listing agent. So what was that like getting a sign call? Tell us about how that conversation went. And I'm sure you were really excited after that.
It was good. I felt like I was almost a little skeptical. Like, are you sure?
Is this too good to be true?
Yeah, because it was a neighborhood in Apex, and it was only like a 20 to 25 house neighborhood. So I didn't even do like a postcard or follow up, because it was like, it felt more like it was a one-off. It was a referral from a past client. The listing did very well. I didn't really take advantage or market it afterwards, because I try and be more focused in I'll market past sales in the neighborhood I farm, but not in one-off neighborhoods. So yeah, but they always said that we saw the results of that past sale and we're interested. And I think the key is they actually registered on my website. I called them within a couple of minutes. We had a good conversation. We set up a meeting for the next day, and then had a listing agreement within a few days. Wow. So it really, I think, shows you too, it's the importance of that follow-up too. So when you get a hot lead, don't just sit on it, you got to jump on it too.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Congrats on that. That's exciting.
Yeah, no, it's very excited. I'm not banking on any more this year, but I'll take the one.
Hey, come on, you got it. That's not the attitude.
Yeah,
you're in more to come. I'm just messing with you. So you mentioned something that I want to dig into, obviously, your transition to Keller Williams. So you were familiar with Keller Williams before you got into real estate, because you had read Gary Keller's book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, which is essentially a Bible on how to build a business, not just how to do a real estate transaction, but how to build a team, how to grow from a single individual agent to, if you want to, there's no pressure, but if you want to grow into where you have your little empire. And yet you didn't join Keller Williams for your first few years in real estate. So we don't have to name your old brokerage, but I would love to talk about the why you switched, because you're 2-3 years into your career, getting a lot of traction. It would have been much easier to stay with what was comfortable rather than moving. And so clearly there was some reason. So walk us through that process. What value did you see in KW? Maybe why did you go elsewhere in the beginning too? Maybe we start there.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to talk about that. Yeah, so I had interviewed with a few different firms when I started my career. I wanted, for me, the most important thing I wanted was somewhere where I'd get really good training and set me up with a good foundation for a long-term career. So for me, it wasn't about the highest split or the most attractive compensation package. It was about where am I going to get this firm foundation to be successful for a long-term career in real estate. And I did read MREA. I heard Keller Williams mentioned on lots of podcasts. But when I was doing my research, I had come across a lot of YouTube videos. I think of some of maybe the old bold trainings, and it did not gel with my style at all. It was very much
very different.
Cold calling. It was meet somebody in the grocery store and add them to your database. It was just find as many people as you can and add them to your funnel. Which, coming from a fundraising background, like I viewed real estate and fundraising, as more as a business. And Keller Williams, from my impression from those videos, did not feel very relational. So I joined another competitive firm, competing firm in the Triangle that I felt was it was smaller. I felt like they embraced, it was called ninja selling, which was very similar to kind of Buffini and working by referral. So it was more about working your spear. So that really attracted me. So I felt like because that style fit better, that was what attracted me to that firm. And then I made the switch. I guess it was December of 2020 over to KW Legacy. There was a few different reasons. One, my old firm, there was no capping. So, and like, I think the year I left, that year I had paid $17,000 in franchise fees alone. Not even, splits or anything. So, I think by moving over to Keller Williams, if I had did the exact same production, would have saved probably like $50,000 to $60,000 just financially. So from a financial perspective, Keller Williams was a huge fit. And obviously that's important. So that, from a business decision, that was one thing. My old firm, it was all more about the bigger company and not as much about the agent. So it was, company, big print, agent, small print, versus, at Keller Williams, it's very much, you can do your own branding, you can do your own signs. They make it about the agent. So I really like that I had the opportunity to really grow my business and my Keith O Realty branding at Keller Williams. So I think that was good. And it just felt like agent, very agent centric. And I actually really liked the office that I was in. I liked the culture, I liked the people. And I felt like I found a good cultural fit again, because that was probably the hardest part about leaving the old offices. I really liked my managing broker. I liked the people in the office. It was very collaborative. And I felt like I found that here at Keller Williams Legacy. But now I've got some other pieces that I think will really help me grow.
Sorry about that. I was muted. So you experienced what felt like a more transactional, treating clients like an ATM machine kind of experience rather than a relational experience. And then after digging into the numbers, it sounds like you realized that you could, and doing more interviewing and meeting the right people, not necessarily just old YouTube videos.
Yeah,
you found
exactly,
someone. And this goes both ways. There are amazing people at every single firm here in the Triangle and around the world. And so you can find a great fit and build a big business no matter where you are. But looking in those numbers and deciding, okay, not just looking at this from a comfort standpoint, but from a nuts and bolts, dollars and cents. How can I grow? What can I build? It sounds like you've got the right fit, which I'm excited about. Now, recently, that was December 2020. And what a crazy time, right? This is 9 months into COVID and you've got multiple kids. Do you have your third kid at this point?
Third kid's on the way. So it was very, it was December 2020. We closed on our new house in Apex. So, we moved from South Durham to Apex. So location was also a factor. So closed, third kid's on the way, 2 months away. So it was a hectic time, but, it was, just dove in.
Yeah. And then tell me why you're involved with young professionals. What does that mean to you?
Well, Kate Carlton bullied me into, no kidding. No, I realized,
Kate, hang on, quick shout out for Kate. Kate is our chapter president. She's amazing. She's also out of the KW Legacy office. And she has done a great job helping build our chapter. So tell me how Kate bullied you. Invited you to YP.
So we are in the office. We're neighbors in our in our office. So we've got offices right next to each other. So I learned, one of the values I think of Keller Williams that my old firm didn't offer is, some of the different professional networks. So that was something I hadn't really thought about when I first joined, but I talking with Kate, I realized, this is a good network to learn from, from peers, that are also, high achieving and striving, and not just within the Triangle chapter, but getting some exposure to other young professionals across the Keller Williams worldwide is a really unique opportunity. So it seemed like a nice, good professional network to really be able to learn and grow from.
Yeah, so really, it is just another part of the next step in your growth, it sounds like. And with your tell you clearly value relationships, and that's what YP is all about. If we do send quite a bit of referrals around the country, but our chapter here in the Triangle has grown from like 15 to over 30 in the past year, and that's a lot of people that can compete for a referral if, say, someone sends one from Denver to Raleigh. So I think many of us would agree, even if we could never get another referral out of being a member of Young Professionals, and that was for some reason off limits, so many of us would still come, and we'll probably even pay more just for the value you get from people around you. One of the quotes that I love attributing to YP is that you are the, or not attributing, but applying to YP. So it's an old quote. I forget who it's accredited to, but you're the average of the 5 people around you. And I feel like when I'm with my YP fam, I'm vibrating, and my energy and my mind, it just hits a higher level of what's possible in my life. And not that you have to do that by any means. There's no pressure to grow and to build a massive empire. But if that's something you want, which is something I've kind of felt like I wanted for years, YP has opened my eyes to see how to actually do that and to believe that I can. So I'm excited to hear how YP continues to grow you too. Speaking of, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no, I was just, I agree.
Awesome. Yeah. Speaking of personal growth, you had mentioned earlier taking off in the middle of the day to run. Is that something that's like part of your like morning routine, or is fitness important to you?
Yeah, so I haven't really talked much about it publicly, and I'm sure maybe some people around my office have noticed, but so I guess it was July of last year, I kind of made a commitment to getting, healthy and to, living a, more balanced and healthier lifestyle. So I think in real estate, it's really easy to fall into some bad habits, and it's easy to pick up the fast food on the road, to not exercise, to just get consumed with, business and then family life. So decided to make some big changes. So from July 5th until this year, I've lost 69 pounds.
Sorry, I was unmuted. 69 pounds.
69 pounds.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
How do you do that? How do you just like flip a switch and all of a sudden like do this? Like what is that?
So it wasn't, I would say it's really about applying, some of the habits from like, the one thing and habit stacking. So it really started with, I used to have the big gulp soda every day. So I cut that out cold turkey. I tried to gradually do it in the past. It never worked. So I haven't had any soda since July. And then I'd say my one thing is I get 10,000 steps every day, no matter what. So, a lot of it's through walking, some of it's through running. But in addition to, other exercise activities, that's my big thing. My one thing is getting the 10,000 steps. And then, I've cut out fast food and made some other habit changes as well. But I think it's really just been being focused and committed to that.
Yeah, I love that. It's not complicated, right? It's simple. It's not easy.
No, and that's why, and it's kind
simple.
of like the same way for real estate too. It's like, I don't feel like I'm doing anything groundbreaking in my real estate career, but it's, it's that consistency, it's that repetition, it's the daily grind that's not sexy, it's not glamorous, but it's putting in the work. It's tracking, and it's doing your phone calls, it's doing your follow-up, it's doing your emails, doing your sticking to your farming campaign. It's kind of the same way I've learned with your health. It's like it's every day I get 10,000 steps. I don't eat fast food. I eat a balanced diet, and it's like, and at first, like the results, it took a while. Like I wasn't seeing the traction. It could have been easy to quit after 3 months when I lost 15 pounds and felt like I was killing myself. But over time you see the results, and I feel like real estate's the same way. It's like as you stick with it, if I gave up on farming after the first 8 months when I didn't get any listings and had spent a bunch of money, then I wouldn't have had the same success that I'm having this year, where I've gotten 3 listings and had a couple other leads come in.
The consistency, it sounds like, in real estate and in fitness is a huge part of that. I love what you said about lunch too, because my friend Allie Parker's on this call, and she and I have joked about what is the ultimate like realtor lunch on the go. Allie, do you want to hop on and tell us what your go-to is?
Yeah, you're killing me, Keith, because my go-to is a Crunchwrap Supreme. You got like one hand on the wheel, one hand and holding on to your Crunchwrap. So what do you eat for lunch, Keith?
Well, it used to be Chick-fil-A a lot. So sorry, Chick-fil-A. That was that was my. So a lot of times, like I'm doing smoothies. So I will say I'm probably keeping tropical smoothie in business right now in Beaver Creek. So I need to start making my own at home to save money. So I'd say from a budget perspective, maybe I'm not doing the best of living a budget, more conscious meal plan. But yeah, I'd say a lot of times I'm doing smoothies or something from Panera if I need a quicker option if I haven't planned in advance.
Yeah, and on that note too, I would encourage you guys to feel free to use the hand icon to raise your hand if you have a question for Keith. We'll probably take multiple breaks here. I didn't realize we're about halfway through our time already. And then if not, use the chat box to throw it in there. Chad Jemison, I see you in the chat. I don't know if you're still on the call, but thanks for the shout out. Miss you, buddy. So yeah, drop your questions for Keith. And it looks like Kate has a question here. So yeah, Kate, go ahead.
I was just gonna say what Allie had written in the chat box. How do you structure your day, Keith?
Yeah, great question.
Yeah, so I usually so I'm in charge of daycare drop off for our little two ones, our 4-year-old and our 1-year-old. So I'll drop them off, and then I'm coming into the office, and I try and do some of my lead gen or follow up in the mornings, and try and do more kind of prospecting. More prospecting in the morning, and then afternoon I try and set aside more for showings or kind of one-offs, and then like depending on the day we'll structure in gym or run if I can. So yeah, I'd say kind of more focused on prospecting, kind of pipeline filling in the morning, and then afternoons more working in the transaction. And then if I can, like sometimes like Kate will see me like when I make my phone calls, I'll do like a loop around our shopping complex. So I witnessed a robbery behind a TJ Maxx doing that once, so that was interesting. So, so you see all sorts of fun things when you're walking. So I try and multitask if I can, do a little exercise while I'm doing some phone calls. But yeah, I'd say more prospecting focused in the morning, and then kind of working on in the business more in the afternoon.
All right, tell me about a robbery behind TJ Maxx. Like what happened there?
Yeah, so I was doing my loop. It's it's about a mile, and then I was walking behind the shopping plaza. Which if you ever walk behind a strip mall shopping plaza, they're a little sketchy. So not that I'm encouraging people to do that, but if you do, you'll see what I mean. So as I was coming out, there was a truck parked behind TJ Maxx, and these two guys ran out of the building and like jumped in the car and sped off. They almost hit me when I was walking, and then this TJ Maxx employee comes out. Like, did you see those guys? They just stole a bunch of merchandise. I was like, yeah, I didn't get that, get a good look at them or get their license, but yeah, so saw a robbery at TJ Maxx.
Wow, that's crazy. And you didn't go Indiana Jones and like jump on the back of their truck?
No, yeah, I was like, you know what? I'm not risking my life for some t-shirts from TJ Maxx or whatever it was.
Yep, you got to keep your big wide, your priorities
in
line, and do most lines with that. So tell me about that. What is your big why? What keeps you motivated when you wake up? Today's a dreary day in Raleigh. How do you stay motivated? How do you get out of bed? How do you get those steps in and get your lead generation done?
Yeah, so for me, it's my family and living a life to where I can support my family, and we can do more activities, enjoy each other's company. So like this past earlier this year, we did a family trip to Disney, and that was the first time we got to take our kids there. So we've got some big renovation plans and updates for our home. So I think being able to live a high quality life is what kind of drives me for my success in real estate. I think you're muted.
Patrick, you're muted.
Oh, thank you very much. See, I try to keep myself muted so I don't make any weird noises. What's next on the vision board with the family? Is it Disney again? Is it going to Europe? Like, what are you guys dreaming about as a family?
Yeah, so I think Disney was fun. No offense to anybody who does that regularly, but that was exhausting. So I don't know if I want to do that quite again yet. So at some point again, yes. But I think maybe a smaller vacation just to the beach or something. And as we dream kind of our next big thing. But I'd say from our side, it's probably, we have some bigger house projects we want to do. So I think saving up for some of those is probably what's next on the horizon.
I love that. That's awesome. And I want to talk about your investing in the market center in a minute. But first, I had a question like, what's next? What's the big thing that you're trying to build with Keith O Realty? Is it a new hire? Is it a new neighborhood you're trying to farm? Like, what are you, it's because it sounds like you've got a great setup right now and you've got a lot of success. You could sit back and take your foot off the gas a little bit and okay, second half of the year, let's coast a little bit, but it doesn't sound like you're doing that. So what's next? What is Keith O Realty building into?
Yeah, so my big take this year was my first year going to family reunion. And I think what I learned from all the different sessions was like really, it's all about your systems and having good systems in place. So so I'm this year is the year of systems. So everything I've been doing, I'm trying to come up, working with my admin to create a system for, so it doesn't feel like we're recreating the wheel. So, developing, a detailed marketing calendar. So, each, January, we know what we're doing, each February. Same with the farming, mailing campaign each, so that way, like we're creating all these things, and then same thing with, even, creating smart plans and just, how we interact with clients and transactions. So it's a lot of work. And, as I've, this year has been busy and I think May might be my best month ever. Like it's been hard to try and set aside the time to create the system. So I think it's, I'd say, yeah, biggest thing is year of the systems. And then I could see myself having more of like a showing assistant or maybe a second admin or a virtual VA is probably a next hire in the process.
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of the showing assistant model. It's how I started before Devin, my showing assistant, came on full time as an agent on my team. And it's been a game changer. So I'm happy to brainstorm that with you outside. We've talked about maybe putting on a class together too. So I'll let you know.
Yeah, that'd be great.
You've mentioned quite a few books, Millionaire Real Estate Agent. The one thing I know you mentioned, so it sounds like you've read that, or at least you're familiar with it. Have you heard of The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, or The E-Myth Revisited?
I've heard of it. I have not read that one.
Yeah. It might be one. I don't know if you've got an open space in your bookshelf right now or in your queue, but yeah, it's all about the myth of entrepreneurism.
Okay.
The E-myth, meaning that you have to do it all yourself. Your clients all want you, and you clearly, it sounds like you're fine with that mindset, not being something that you fall into. But yeah, it's a lot about working on the business rather than in it, and carving out that time and structuring that. So that I would recommend the 12-week year. Is what my team's going through right now on how to prioritize your day. And if your one thing is systems right now, okay, let's create a 12-week schedule of how we're going to build out these systems. Week 1, we're going to do this. Maybe by week 7, we need to have this accomplished. And so amazing resources. On that note, are you reading anything right now? What sort of books or podcasts are inspiring you?
Yeah, so really, actually, it was our new team leader, KT Temple, had recommended a book called Focus. And ironically, I started to read it, I think, on the way to family reunion and had lost focus and then regrouped. So back on focus again. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's been good. Yeah. And that one's a lot about mindset and, really, setting your priorities. So I think it aligns well with where I'm at. So that's been a good one that I'm reading. And actually that started the audiobook of the 12-week year, but I think that one might be a better one to physically read because some of the stuff, some things work well for audio books and other ones don't.
Yeah, I did 12-week year audio and a hard copy. I had to go back and take notes and listen to it once and then go back and reread it and underline and mark it all up. So no one can ever have my copy of that because that thing's like a Bible now.
Yeah,
it's all personalized for me. I love it. Okay, great. And I'm just kind of looking at my questions down here as we round out our last few minutes. Let me check the chat here. It looks like we might have some questions or some comments. Yeah. Oh, Eva, you want to chat about showing assistant stuff? Yeah, certainly. We can talk more about that outside. Happy to share what I've learned there. What's it like to set yourself apart from other agents? Clearly you're in a YP chapter with 30 some folks in it. You're in a market center that's large and successful. Shout out to KT, by the way, the new team leader. Got to hang out with him at the Bulls game last week or 2 weeks ago for our YP baseball game. How do you differentiate yourself? What does Keith O bring to the table that someone else may not?
It's like, I don't feel like I'm, doing or that different, I think we have so many high quality, high caliber agents, but I feel like it's just being authentic to who you are. So I'm very real on my social media and get a lot of positive feedback from that. So I do a lot with my Instagram stories. I'll do, funny things I see or, do polls or trying to make it interactive. So I feel like I really am authentic. People, what you see is what you get with me. So I think living, being true to who you are and, realizing that you're not for everybody. And I've come, I used to have this, fear of not being likable. And I've come to just realize like, people who who I gel well with, and I attract, like those are the people I want to work with. And if they don't choose to work with me, or I'm not the right fit, that's okay, because there's plenty of people out there. So I think it's really just being true to yourself, as who you are. So I feel like I try to be very authentic, and then I feel like I am very proactive in my communication and my follow-up. So I think somebody who really appreciates that, and I've gotten that feedback a lot from my clients, and I think that's what's also helped get me a lot of my referrals, is just being a very good communicator. And I learned that from my fundraising background, and that communications degree finally paid off from college.
Yeah, I know a lot of us are still trying to find aspects of our college degrees and how they're valuable.
Political science, not as much, but communications, I guess I'll
Yeah,
take. So.
for sure. Yeah, and so much of it's the life skills, and it's those soft skills that you learn, and how to present your project or your thesis things. That's very similar to doing a listing presentation, right? So speaking of that and those skills, what do you say to an agent who's 6 months in, 9 months in? They might have had 1 or 2 clients and had some momentum, but now they can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. They don't know if it's going to work, and they're like, man, maybe I'm going back to grad school, or maybe I'm going to go back to that telemarketing job, or being a bank teller. Not that any of those things are bad, but someone who may have a spark and it's almost going to go out. What do you say to those newer agents who are struggling?
Yeah, so I would say, like, a lot of the times, like, it's the work that you're putting in now, you're not going to see the results. So, like, you might be on the cusp of, especially if you're 6 months in and you're putting in the work, like that next 6 months might be, like I think we talked about the other day, it's like my first, 5 or 6 months in real estate, I had 5 transactions. And then my first full year, the 12 months after that, I had 32. So it's like, if I had just based it on, oh, I've only had 5 sales within the first 6 months, like this isn't going well, I would have missed out on, what was to come. So I think if you're putting in the work and putting the effort in and truly doing it, and that's what I would question, or like really dive deeper in and say, like, what does your schedule look like? What does your daily routine look like? Because I think a lot of people who think they're working hard, are, I don't want to say are not, but, a lot of them, they're not, and I talked about this recently with Kate. It's like, it's frustrating, or like a little comical sometimes when you hear other agents complaining how busy they are. And it's like, and I feel like we're both producing at very high volumes. We've got young kids, we've got like all these responsibilities, and someone's complaining how busy they are, and they don't seem to have a whole lot going on in their life, and they maybe have 1 or 2 transactions. So it's about your mindset. It's about really evaluating and being honest with yourself. Like, where are you at in your business, and are you really putting forth the best effort that you can?
Yeah, Charlie Karp, our friend here from YP, out of state. I see Charlie's in the DC area. I see you mentioned 3 feet from gold. I think he's talking about that image where you see someone digging and they haven't found it yet, and then they give up and turn around. And the other person found the gold just 3 feet later. I love that. And that just made me forget what my question was going to be. See, this is what happens when I pay attention to the questions here. Anyone else, please feel free to hop up with a question for Keith before we hop off. I remember what it was.
Real quick,
yeah, go ahead,
Patrick. Keith, do you have a coach?
I do. So I've when I was with my old firm, I was doing the Feeney coaching, and I've continued that. It's gone well, and I feel like I like it, but it is a little bit repetitive, and I don't know if I'm quite getting the full value out of the coach that I have now. So this year I might look into maybe switching over to MAPS coaching, but I've had the Feeney coach for maybe, I guess, about 2.5 years.
Exactly the question I was going to ask Ali.
Yeah,
because when he was talking about younger agents and asking, well, how do you spend your time? What are you focusing on? Because as we all know, not all hours in the day are created equally. Sometimes I can get more done in 1 hour than I can in 8 hours. And that's what the one thing is all about. It's what coaching is all about. You're paying someone else to just make you do what you said is important to you, right? A coach isn't going to fit you into some square hole if you're a round peg. They're going to say, all right, what's important to you? And I'm going to help you achieve what you want, because I have the skills and the mindset and the detachment where I'm not emotionally invested in your day to day with the baggage. Like, I'm here to help you see through what you can't see and get you to that next level. So I've heard some people say that, once you get to 2 or 3 years with a coach, it is often a time to evolve into the next one, which, Keith, it sounds like that may be where you're at. And so I know we all know a ton of great coaches within MAPS and even outside of that. And so Ali, great question.
Mm-hmm.
Who else has a question for Keith before we hop off? And I've got a few more I can add in as well. Keith, let me ask you this. If Zillow takes over the world tomorrow and all real estate is done by NFTs and Venmo, who knows, what would you be doing if there was no such thing as a real estate agent anymore?
I would, well, I don't know. Yeah. I feel like I would struggle, honestly, like, because, I worked in fundraising, I was meeting so many people who did all these interesting jobs. Like I drove my wife crazy because I was always like, well, what if I did this? Or what if I could go write sitcoms in LA, or I could go, work in energy in Houston. I feel like I've had a lot of exposure to different careers, and I feel like I finally found something that I'm passionate about and can see myself growing in for a career. So, I don't know what I would do, because I think I would just struggle, honestly, because I feel like I finally have found like what I'm meant to do.
Wow, that's awesome, man. Well, based on your transition from education to or higher ed into real estate, I have no doubt that you would transition successfully into whatever the next thing is. Maybe screenwriting,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
improv. Maybe, should he be on stage? Maybe in LA.
Yeah, definitely not acting.
So let's say that happens, or maybe let's look back at a mistake you might have made, or something that just a low point in your real estate career. Do you have any stories from that, and like what you learned from those?
Yeah, I feel like one, it was, and I still struggle with whether it's my fault or how I should have approached it. But I had a client this who's sent me a lot of referrals, and we've had a really good relationship. Come tax season this year, they were upset because they had sold their prior home, or I had helped them sell, and it was about a month early, to where they had to pay a big capital gains on that. And that just was not on my radar. I think I was really busy at the time and just didn't really think about it from that perspective. So should they have known? Yes. Should I have flagged it? Probably. So I feel like that kind of hurt my relationship with these folks about, if I was thinking a little bit more strategically about, looking at the timeline, I could have really helped save them a lot of money by pointing that out, and they would have been very appreciative of that, versus now I feel like I wouldn't say they've totally blamed me, but I feel like it's definitely, they look at me a little bit differently now because I didn't bring that up.
Yeah, that's tough. We love our clients, right? And we want to help them achieve their goals. And that is something you could have tried to be a fail-safe on, like, oh, hey, by the way, have you guys thought about capital gains taxes? I don't know that I would have thought about that necessarily.
Yeah. So that's,
in the thick of the moment,
tough, yeah.
Yeah. And that's why it's always good to remind us, hey, I'm not a tax professional. I'm not a financial expert. Here's what I am an expert in. And when the time is right to sell your house, you let me know. And we can, it's, have you heard of the Checklist Manifesto? It's a book. I think I've got it right over here somewhere. It's a book by a surgeon, and Gawande, I think it's Atul Gawande. And Dr. Gawande said that, or his premise is basically like, if you look at any high intensity job, airline pilot, surgeon, there has been such a drastic decrease in mistakes because they have checklists and protocols they have to follow now. Even if you know exactly what comes next, you have to look at the checklist, you have to say it out loud, you have to
Słucham meetingu, rozmawiam z tobą i patrzę na bilety.
$5 paliwa.
No.
$5 paliwa.
Hey, Jolanta or Yolanta, I think you're unmuted and I don't think I can mute you. Awesome. Thank you so much. No worries at all. But yeah, so this checklist manifesto is basically saying, what if in real estate we apply that same thing? Just write down every single thing you do in a real estate transaction. And one of those could be, now you'll add to your checklist, right? That's my thing. Anytime I make a mistake or I didn't see something coming, even if it had nothing to do with me, I can now add in a checklist. Okay, put on this box, discuss capital gains with them and refer them to an expert if they have more info. So it's a great book. Like many books, I've read about half of it, and it's fantastic. And I work with my admin and my team to build these checklists out to make sure we don't miss anything. Even if it's not something we should have been on top of, it can't hurt to ask a quick question. Simple as I added early on in my career to my checklist to make sure a client connects their utilities in advance, because I think we've all had clients who have forgotten, and it's not our responsibility, but we can also help with that. So that's an awesome story. Thanks for sharing that, Keith.
Yep.
Eva says that you have a future career in telling dad jokes if real estate doesn't work out. So can you leave us with a good dad joke before we part?
Oh, I don't, let's see. What US state is named after a small beverage? Anybody?
US state named after a small beverage.
Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota.
Oh, Minnesota. Nice. Who got that? Who?
I think it
didn't
was
see that.
Charlie.
It was
Oh,
me,
Charlie.
the kid that was in there.
Good work, Charlie. Man, I had such a good one the other day. Now I can't remember what it is. I forget. My daughter told a joke the other day. We were in the mountains and she said, "Hey Dad, what did the mountain say to the building?" And I was like, I have no idea. I'm on a road trip. I'm like, I don't have enough coffee. I don't want to be doing dad jokes right now. And I said, I don't know. What did the mountain say to the building? And she said, "I'm older than you." And I was like, wow, okay, that's actually very perceptive. So maybe my 6-year-old has a future at dad jokes.
Yeah,
So
we got some good jokes in our future.
All right, guys, it's 9:22. We usually like to end these at 9:30. We've kind of run through our questions. Keith, you make quick work out of this, man. You just drop the nuggets and leave us with them. And I know people are going to get a ton of value out of this. Is there anything else, any piece of advice or any story or anything that you want to leave us with before we part?
I don't think so. Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for coming. And yeah, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Happy to be a resource. Love connecting with people and supporting one another in this crazy market.
Keith, what's the best way for someone to get in touch with you? Facebook, Instagram, email?
Yeah,
text?
so I'm on Instagram at Keith O Realty. And my email is keitho@keitho Realty. So it's the Instagram, or feel free to shoot me an email.
I love it. And Keith, I got to ask, are you going to the YP Nashville Summit in a few weeks, or are you going to be going to Mega Camp? Like, where can people see you?
I'm hoping to go to Mega Camp. So I've just,
Awesome.
this year I've had a weird year of personal travel and professional travel aligning. So did Disney Orlando, then 18 days later went back for family reunion, did Austin for personal, then a week later went for the franchise systems orientation. So I'm doing my personal and work trips in tandem. So I actually put an Instagram out there. So maybe Hawaii, Fiji next. So yeah,
There we go.
Events there. Love to do that.
If you talk to Darnell Aponte, shout out Darnell, my buddy in Atlanta, in Miami with YP. I don't know where Atlanta came from. Darnell is South Florida. He just went to St. Lucia recently for a wedding and said it was like the best trip of his life. So put that one on your radar.
All right, St. Lucia, there we go.
That reminds me of two things, actually. I wanted to mention that if anyone on the call doesn't know, we're going to have our YP National Summit for all of young professionals in Nashville, June 2nd through the 4th. It's not too late to join. The lineup's amazing. I'm not speaking, so I'm just not at this one. The lineup's amazing. We're gonna have a wealth building seminar, which I think still have some space in it. So let me know if you're interested. We can get you that. And then make sure you look at Mega Camp later this fall. That's always in Austin, Texas, where Keller Williams headquarters is. Some of the top agents in the country coming to mastermind, get inspiration, get re-inspired and connected with each other. And then lastly, Keith, I mentioned this earlier and I forgot to circle back to it, so I apologize. You went to Austin for financial systems orientation, FSO, which is where you learn essentially how to run a market center and how to be an owner and an operator in that, because you recently invested in the Keller Williams Legacy Market Center where you're at in Apex. You don't have to get into specific finances, but what is that like? Why did you choose to invest in an office rather than, say, real estate, which obviously many realtors are getting rental properties? Yeah, tell us about that investing.
Yeah, so I guess it was towards the end of last year, had the opportunity, or OP had approached me. I guess some of their original investors, were moving on or transitioning out, so they had an opportunity for a few new investors, and she had approached me about it. So yeah, I had the opportunity to become for some financial capital, get a 10% stake in our Keller Williams Legacy Office Market Center. And yeah, so it's been neat. And obviously that was not part of my original plan or attraction to KW, but especially through this franchise system orientation, I've learned there's a lot of really neat potential here, and what a cool company Keller Williams really is, and how they really are structured to support agents, and both the agents and the owners of the market center can really benefit. So I feel like there's really a lot of potential here for both, and for me, it's, real estate is, my main business, but I'm looking at ways to get, other sources of passive income. So, I do hope to acquire rental properties, and but this was just a good opportunity, and I didn't feel like this, who knows if this would ever come up again, versus I could in theory buy a rental property at any time, versus having the chance to invest in a market center, and especially my own market center that's right in my backyard. Who knows if I would have that opportunity again. So I took advantage.
Yeah, and I mean, and you're a direct part of that market center being profitable too. The business that you do and the agents that you bring on and the profit share that comes in under you, that's going to directly relate to the ownership of the office. And so how cool is it to be literally invested, not just emotionally and relationally, but financially in the success of your office?
For sure.
So That's not something I've ever really looked into, the pricing and the ROI. If you're going to invest, you obviously want to know what the potential returns are, but my
Yeah.
investments have all been traditional rental properties. And so I've got a lot to learn from you in that on another call or on another
Yeah.
coffee. But I want to say
Okay.
thanks to you. It is almost 9:30, so we're going to hop off unless anyone else has any questions. And I want to say thanks to everyone who is watching this live, obviously right now, and anyone who's going to watch later and endure our dad jokes. So thank you guys for all being on here. You're the reason why we do this, is just to add value and to share the wealth. There's so many amazing stories and personal lives and businesses being built within Keller Williams. And if you have any recommendations for people we should interview, please send them to me. I'm Patrick at madiganrealty.co. You can find me on Instagram at Patagon. I would love to know who we should interview, who we should have on this stage. And there's a chance we may shift it a little bit later in the morning to get some of our West Coast friends on these calls as attendees and also as guest speakers. And so keep that in mind as well. If this is open to the West Coast, it's not just the Southeast region. Unless anyone else has anything, we're going to close it here. Last call.
Thanks, everybody.
Awesome.
Thank
Keith,
you, Keith.
thank you so much for your
Yeah.
time. Thank you, everyone who's here. Make sure you check out next month, Coffee with Omega with our KWYP chapter here. My name is Patrick. I'm your vice president of the chapter. Happy to host this series, and we will see you next month. Bye, everybody.